Spider-Man, No Way Home. Wow. What a movie. This I can't even speak. I can't even speak. That's how much I love this movie. This movie gave me everything I had dreamed of and more. It's very rare that I have my expectations set this high for a movie and it actually delivers. I'm looking at you, Star Wars, the new trilogy. Um, but, I mean, man, in this video I'm going to get into the spiritual meaning of Spider-Man No Way Home. And I know some of you might be coming in just from other, like, you know how the YouTube algorithm works. You might be watching some Spider-Man No Way Home movie reviews, and you've stumbled across this weird spiritual guy, and you're like, what does he have to say? So if you've seen the movie, stick with me. If not, I would like to give you a huge spoiler warning for everybody out there, all of my subscribers that have not seen the movie. If you plan on seeing it, which I suggest you do, don't watch this review because there's no way for me to really go into the spiritual meaning of the movie without spoiling the movie. So just save it to your watch later playlist and come back and enjoy listening to the spiritual meaning of Spider-Man No Way Home. What's up, everybody who is stuck with me? Either you don't care about spoilers or you've already seen the movie. Either way, again, spoiler warning, last call for anybody who has not seen this movie and doesn't want it spoiled, leave now. Alright, so Spider-Man No Way Home. We're going to get into the spiritual meaning of this movie as well as just probably some of my general thoughts and summary from what I can remember from just seeing it in the theaters a little while ago, earlier today. It starts off with Spider-Man picking up where he left off in the last movie, Spider-Man Far From Home, where at the end of, I think it was a post-credit scene, where his true identity as Spider-Man was revealed. And so now everybody knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And as you could imagine, this poses a lot of problems for him. And he can't really go anywhere without being harassed, being seen as a criminal. He can't go back to school on the first day of school without everybody taking out their phone and videoing him. He's a celebrity. And, you know, this ties into the media deception that we experience today, where people just believe anything they see on the news without critically thinking about it. And people have been lied to for generations. We're just starting to, I mean, people have been awake to it, but we're really starting to wake up to that media deception more and more nowadays. And this is because Mysterio, the villain from the last movie, portrayed Spider-Man as the villain. And the way that he set up the clips, the way that J. Jonah Jameson delivered the information from just looking at what they put out to the world, it did make Spider-Man look like the villain. So Peter Parker realizes that there's really no way for any of his friends or him to live a normal life, with everyone knowing that he's Spider-Man. So he has to go to Doctor Strange to figure out if there's anything he can do with the Time Stone from the Avengers movies to warp time, go back in time, and change things. But Doctor Strange, of course, tells him that he doesn't have the Time Stone anymore. It's been destroyed. So there's really no way to use the Time Stone to do this. But he does remember that there is a spell he can cast. I don't remember exactly what they called it, but it's a spell to have basically everyone forget that he is Peter Parker. And as he's telling Peter this, he's casting the spell, right? And Peter's like, well, is MJ going to forget about me? Are we not going to be in love anymore? She's not going to know that I'm Spider-Man, so that's, a big deal. How am I going to explain that to her? He does that with Ned. He does that with Aunt May. And this forces Doctor Strange to cast like 4 or 5 different spells because Peter keeps making him change it. And then ultimately it ruins the spell. It opens this huge multiverse. And that's where things get crazy. That's where the spiritual meaning comes in. The multiverse has been opened, and all of the people that know who Peter Parker is are coming back, or coming into this reality to get Spider-Man because they know who Spider-Man is in their other realities. And so we get to see Doc Ock come back. We get to see Electro. We get to see the Lizard. We get to see Sandman. And of course, we get to see the Green Goblin. This is a dream, you know. If you would have told me this 5 years ago, I would have not believed that all of the Spider-Man villains from the other movies were going to come in and go against Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Like, I would have thought you were crazy. I could have never dreamed of something this amazing. This is where the spiritual meaning comes in because the multiverse is opened. And as we know, quantum physics shows us that there are an infinite number of parallel realities, and they are all happening at the same time. They're all happening in the infinite now. Imagine yourself in another reality. You might be the same like I might be living as Eli, as myself in another universe right now. And we are constantly shifting to those different versions of ourselves, even while we're here now. The reason we can't perceive this is because we have memories and we think, oh, well, this happened, this happened, this happened, and that's how I ended up here. But actually, every now moment, we are shifting into a different parallel reality. We are choosing to be the version of ourselves that we choose to be in that reality. So that's why it's so powerful to change who you're being. Change the things that you do, and you will shift yourself into a different reality. You just won't know it. It might not be as extravagant as this movie does it, but there are infinite parallel realities that we are connecting to right now, and it's proven by science. And we can also be completely different people in other universes that are happening right now. In terms of linear time, they aren't happening right now. Some of them might be, but in terms of quantum physics, everything is happening right now. It's a weird mind trip to go on, but I could be a girl right now. In another reality, I probably am a girl, and even if it's in the past or the future, it's still happening right now. It's really weird, but it is. And this is proven by science. Of course, we don't know everything about it, but I think we're going to be discovering more and more of this as humanity evolves. I believe that in our dreams, many times we connect to these other universes or these other parallel realities, and we wake up and we just think it's a dream, but we don't really realize what we've just experienced. And a lot of you are, spiritual people or awakened people. So you probably have had some of these insane dreams where you're on another planet. You're experiencing things from a perspective that you've never experienced before. And maybe you've even had dreams like me that come true only a few days after or the next day after you've had a dream. So the power of dreams is absolutely ridiculous. But, in the movie, Peter Parker is a different person in these other universes. But in actuality, in real life, we could be the same person, just experiencing different things. Maybe we have a different look on the outside. Maybe I'd say it's a combination. I'd say there's other universes where I actually have this same physical body and I'm experiencing things from a different perspective, And maybe I've already shifted out of that universe in this now moment when I make the decision to be a different version of myself. It's really a mind trip. It's hard to explain, but it's crazy, and it is proven by science. Even scientists that are atheists are starting to say, we can't really explain what's going on. It's like science is going to eventually have to admit that some of this spiritual stuff might be true. And they already have admitted that quantum physics shows us that time is an illusion. It's nothing that's, a straight up lie. So Doctor Strange has all of these villains from other universes trapped. And they finally got them all. All he's got to do is press this button and they'll all go back, meaning that some of them will die because they died in their universes. But Peter Parker, with the help of Aunt May, decides that, it would be a more noble thing to try and cure these people, to try and rid them of the things that made them become villains in the first place, because deep down they aren't actually bad people. They weren't villains until they had something contaminate them. So he fights off Doctor Strange, gets this little box for himself, and then, of course, as he's trying to cure the other people, successfully cures Doc Ock, the Green Goblin goes crazy. The evil spirit of the Green Goblin comes back and gets Norman Osborn, who's otherwise a normal person. He takes him over. It's like a demon taking him over and turns him into the Green Goblin again. Something that I just realized as I was laying down about to go to sleep, which made me get back up to film this part, was that, the idea of spider sense is very similar to intuition. And Spider-Man normally has to just close his eyes and trust his spider sense in many different movies to figure out what the right thing to do is. And it's a lot like letting go and trusting the universe, trusting God, trusting your own intuition, and following your heart, where you don't even need to see physical proof. You just can trust. And I thought that was an interesting concept, because he senses that there's something wrong in the movie before the Green Goblin goes crazy, or when the Green Goblin is coming back to Norman Osborn. He just has like just ear ringing, that there's something off here. And then he just trusts and realizes it because he lets go of control. And that's how he discovers it, is by letting go of that control. And that's just a very interesting concept that I think we all know a little bit about. Letting go of that need for control, surrendering it, and allowing it to come to you through the use of your intuition, because you already know what's right deep down. Just the mind gets in the way a lot of the time. So then Spider-Man and the Green Goblin have this huge fight. It's amazing, by the way. But then it ends with the Green Goblin injuring Aunt May so bad that she ends up dying. And before she dies, she tells Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. And of course, this is a nod to the thing that Uncle Ben said in the other Spider-Man trilogies: with great power comes great responsibility. We just never got to experience that moment with Uncle Ben with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because Aunt May was more of that influential figure in his life. And that was that was a crazy moment. I teared up. That was such an emotional moment where, she said the line and it was just like, wow, with great power comes great responsibility. And so, of course, Peter Parker is distraught at this point. He doesn't know what to do. He loses Aunt May. Happy gets arrested. His life is falling apart, all because he was trying to help these villains out, help them, discover the person they really are inside. And so now he's just in this awful situation. And guess who shows up? Thanks to Ned Leeds discovering his hidden power of opening portals, which comes out of nowhere, by the way. I mean, what was that? But Ned Leeds can use this little thing on his finger that Doctor Strange had. He starts opening portals, and he wants to see Peter Parker. He says, bring us Peter Parker, or whatever he says. And in comes Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I mean, that was a moment. That was a crazy moment. The kid in me was so excited to see that. And then next he does it again. Doesn't get Tom Holland. He gets Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. And of course the theater erupted for both of those reveals. I mean, I already knew they were going to be in the movie, but wow. And what I'm going to talk about here is actually another spiritual meaning, which is the portal idea. The fact that, in a way, we are experiencing reality through portals more so now than any generation has. The phone is actually a form of a portal. If you think about it, you're connecting with me through a portal right now. You're watching this video through a portal, because I'm not actually physically there with you. I've made this video a while before you're watching it, but you're experiencing it in this now moment. So you're actually kind of going into a portal, and with the metaverse coming and all of that stuff, we're going to be experiencing reality through portals even more so than we ever have, exponentially more so than we ever have in history. And that's just an interesting concept, it's like you can step into another reality without having to actually physically go to another reality or open up another reality as the movie portrays it. But in real life that we're living right now, we are actually doing this without even knowing it most of the time. Another interesting concept that I'd like to revisit is Aunt May's death, and how this is, in a way, Peter Parker's Dark Night of the Soul. As many of you know, the Dark Night of the Soul, a lot of us experienced a loss of some sort. We experienced pain of losing a loved one, or, having someone walk out of our life, or losing everything we've ever known. And Peter Parker experiences this. Aunt May is gone. Happy's being arrested. His life as he knows it is different. And it'll actually, now that I'm talking about it, the beginning of the movie is actually Peter Parker's Dark Night of the Soul, where he has all of these issues. He's basically in that darkness where everybody's after him. He's now a villain. I mean, it's one giant Dark Night of the Soul. His life as he knew it is over. And that's when he discovers this infinite universe, which is similar to a lot of our spiritual awakenings. So that's really cool. And it's like he goes through this loss, he goes through all of this pain, and then he becomes stronger because of it. He uses it as motivation. So after all of the death and destruction, Spider-Man is finally reunited with Ned and MJ, and then he eventually meets the two other versions of him. And they are there to comfort him through this loss because they've experienced the same type of loss in their own universes. And at first, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he doesn't want to accept that. He doesn't want to hear that. Don't tell me that you've gone through the same thing. But as they talk more, he realizes that they actually have gone through very, very eerily similar experiences because they are the other versions of him. And they even share the with great power comes great responsibility line, which was another it was a moment. It was a moment. But I could kind of relate this to maybe you interacting with your inner child or the past version of you that actually exists right now, because the kid version of me is still existing right now, not in terms of linear time, but again, in quantum terms, little me is still existing right now, and I've connected with the younger version of me even in videos on this channel. But like, it's almost as if Peter Parker's connecting with the older versions of him, and they're connecting with the child version of Peter Parker. And of course, this is a movie, so it's not exactly how it actually works, but this concept is still interesting. It's like the other versions of you communicating with the current version of you. The future version of you communicates with the current version of you. We just don't always perceive it that way. We don't really know that it's happening because we're here with our little ego. We're trapped in this human body. We think everything is so concrete, but there's so much more to life that we don't know. And I'm not claiming to know everything about the universe or the universes, but I know that I do get messages all the time, whether you want to say it's spirit guides, whether you want to say it's God, whether you want to say it's the universe communicating with you. It doesn't really matter, but you understand this concept that sometimes you are sent messages from the future that may actually just be you in this same now moment. So we get the on-screen version of the Spider-Man meme where all three Spider-Men realize that they are each other. And that was so cool to see. But, long story short, they have some conversations, they realize their similarities, there's some cool jokes in there, but they end up fighting all the villains, they end up curing everybody, and the last person that Tom Holland's Spider-Man has to take down is the Green Goblin, and of course he killed Aunt May, so he's out for revenge. He wants to kill him, and he could have. He was going to kill him with his glider, and right before he does it, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man steps in and stops him, and basically just looks him in the eye and says, doesn't have to say anything, but he's just, this isn't the right thing to do. And I would compare this to your higher self stepping in when you're about to do something and making you realize that's not the right thing to do. Maybe you don't even realize it's not the right thing to do, but your higher self steps in and makes something happen to where you can't make that decision or you can't go down that path because that's not ultimately what's going to lead you to the best version of yourself. So after the Green Goblin gets cured, or Norman Osborn gets cured and brought back to his normal self, Doctor Strange realizes that there's nothing he can do to stop this anymore. All the people from the other universes are coming in. They want to get to Peter Parker, and there's no way to stop it other than casting a spell which would cause literally everyone that Peter Parker's ever known to completely forget that he's existed. And obviously this is a very difficult thing for Peter to have to go through because he has a relationship with MJ. Ned will forget all about him. Happy will forget all about him. Everyone will forget all about him. Even Doctor Strange. I mean, nobody's going to know who Peter Parker is. Not just that he's Spider-Man, but just Peter Parker the person will be unrecognizable to the entire population. And Doctor Strange doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to put that on Peter, but Peter makes the very noble decision to, such a Spider-Man decision. With great power comes great responsibility, man. He says, you know what? You gotta do it. I'm gonna make that sacrifice for the good of humanity and just have to suffer the consequences myself. And so he gets to say goodbye to his, other Spider-Men. Uh, which was a really cool moment where they all hugged. And then he has to, of course, say goodbye to Ned and MJ and tell them that they're going to forget all about him. And so MJ tells him that he loves her, or that she loves him for the first time, at least on film. And she tells him to wait to say it back when he meets her again. And that was such an emotional moment. Really sad that they're just not going to know who he is. And then we fast forward to when Peter has where no one has any recollection of Peter anymore, and we get to see what his life is like. He's living in this crappy apartment, and he has this whole plan to go to MJ's work and reintroduce himself. He's got stuff written down, hi, I'm Peter Parker. You probably don't remember me, but, and then he's gonna, try and explain everything. But then he gets there, Ned's there, and, he's interacting with MJ. They got into MIT. They seem to be happy. And, as Peter orders a coffee and she doesn't really know who he is, he's kind of contemplating, should he even do what he planned to do and try and explain everything to her. And he notices the band-aid above her, like this area, the band-aid that where she got cut. She doesn't even probably know how that happened. She doesn't remember any of it. And he realizes that he's been putting the people he loves most in danger just by being associated with him. So he makes the very difficult decision to just not even reveal it. At least in this movie, he doesn't reveal it. And I think, this is a lesson that we can all learn from, because sometimes if you really love someone, you have to let them go. It's a cliche saying, but it's true. If you really love them and you don't want them to go through the pain of whether it's being associated with you or just, what your lifestyle brings, or for whatever reason they want to leave, if you really love them, let them go. So Peter Parker does just that. He lets his friends go because he knows that they're just as happy, if not happier, not even knowing who he was. And it's really sad, of course, especially for him. It's like he's lost everyone who he's ever loved, and there's nothing he can really do about it. Even if he tried to explain it to them, it would probably be very difficult. Even though he knows certain sayings that she goes by with the whole disappointed thing, and she's like, how does he know that? He just has to let her go. And that's probably one of the biggest pains you can go through in life, is having to let someone go that you've spent so much time with, but it won't work out with. And there's really nothing you can do about it but to just let them go and be free. It's like you've had a pet bird in a cage, and it's trapped. That it can, let's say you've had a baby bird and you've raised it, but now it's grown up into an adult, and you have to let it go. Or you have a kid, and this kid's grown up with you, been in your house, you love it so much, you love the kid, but you have to let them go. You have to let them be an adult and live their own life. So Peter Parker chooses to let them live their own lives. And at the end of the movie, in the post-credits scene, we do see Venom, which hints at possibly, most likely, another Spider-Man movie coming. I believe Tom Holland has maybe 3 more movies on his deal. But before seeing that post-credit scene, I was thinking, maybe there won't be another movie, because how are they going to patch this up? So I don't know if he will end up reconnecting with MJ and Ned, or if they're going to have new people in the movie. I don't know how that's going to work. But it was a really emotional and teaching moment, at least for me, seeing Peter Parker let his friends go for their own good. And in my life, I've had to let people go and be free, as I'm sure many of you have. And it's a tough thing to go through personally, but if you really love them, you've got to let them go. And for those of you who don't know, the way I actually started out on YouTube when I was in middle school was making movie reviews. And what got me into making movie reviews and movies in general, like hardcore, was Spider-Man. It was actually the first Amazing Spider-Man movie of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man that really got me into the whole YouTube movie review space, watching pretty much it, watching Jeremy Jahns, Chris Stuckman, all of these people, the OGs of YouTube, back in the old days. That's what got me into YouTube, and I started a channel. I was too embarrassed because people at my school made fun of me about it. I mentioned that in my first ever video on this channel, and I'm not going to let that stop me. But it's really a full circle moment for me to be able to make this kind of spiritual meaning movie review type video, because movies are something that I'm really passionate about. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, and I'm connecting with my inner child, connecting with the younger version of me by doing this video. And in a way, all of that's happening at the same exact time. It's just like, wow. Wow. I'm so grateful to be able to share this with you guys. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like. Leave your comments about what you thought of the movie. If you have any suggestions for other movies that I should do spiritual meaning on, I'm planning on doing The Truman Show at some point. And of course, there are a lot of movies that can have a video like this made about them. And also, I'm sure I forgot some things. Just saw the movie a little while ago, but I wanted to get this out as soon as possible. So, I love you all. Universal crystals forever. Or maybe